This is the Zac Anesbury Show.
Welcome. On today's podcast clip, we have Professor Billy Sung from Curtin University, Perth, Australia. So you did your PhD at University of Queensland. It seems to be, so you started in 12, you finished in 16, and that could just be when you started during the year or whatever. Does that mean that your PhD had some sort of coursework component in it at the University of Queensland, or?
No, so in University of Queensland and most Australian university, PhD doesn't really require coursework unless, when you're enrolled, your supervisor can say that, Billy needs to do a quantitative research unit in postgraduate level just for a condition to pass. We call it milestone 1, which we'll probably discuss later on. Basically, it's kind of like a confirmation that you're ready to do a PhD. But in some sense, no. So why that is the case is because I actually took 3.5 years, 3 years and 4 months, I think. And basically, it's when I started and when I finished, which was a bummer because that actually reminds me that, in Australia, we have the Australian Research Council, which offer fellowship, 5-year fellowship for, we call it DECRA. So I forgot what it's called, Discovery Early Career Research Fellowship Scheme, I think. And so I actually finished my PhD in February, but they counted me that I finished because there's this cutoff point. So basically, they think that I finished my PhD in February 2016, but they counted me always that I finished in 2015. And so I literally, when I finish my PhD, I have, and DECRA and these type of fellowship schemes, as you know, Zach, they have kind of like a period, like after you finish your PhD, 5 years. And because of that cutoff date, as soon as I got conferral, that means I already lost 1 year to apply for the fellowship. That my check, like they just assume that, you just missed the cutoff date. And the cutoff date was literally 3 days.
Oh, no.
So I actually went to my DVCI at Curtin when I was trying to apply for DECRA, and I said, "Can you write me an exception letter?" He's like, "No." And I go, "Why?"
I think you got ripped off there because I think it should be your confirmation date. Yeah, because that's when the university certifies everything that you've done.
Because
that's really unlucky.
My thesis assessment also took not a lot, but a while longer than used to be. So normally it's about 3 months where you get the examination score. Well, the examiner needs to assess the thesis, you get the score, and then you have to revise it, and then the chairperson have to sign off to say, "Yep, Billy have meet every single criteria." Normally that takes 3 to 4 months in the Australian university. My recollection was it took about six to 7 months because the thesis examiner was, I think one of them was on leave or something.
See, that's really unfair. If only they took 3 less days of leave, you'd be okay.
Yes. or our graduate research school in University of Queensland to speed up that administrative process from 3 days, I would have been okay.
All right. I think the worst I've ever heard in terms of examination times was, I think they've gotten a lot better because I think the community is better at supporting each other now. But one of them was one of my colleagues, their PhD thesis was under review or examination for, I think it was like 10 months or a year or something. And they kept sending like follow-up emails, what's going on? Turns out they were in prison.
Oh my God. Wow.
Eventually someone alerted them to the fact that you are never getting this examination. You might want to find someone else.
My God.
Like, what are the odds, right? We'll discuss off air what they were there for. So your PhD thesis was in psychology and marketing, or mostly psych, or had a marketing bent to it, or like, how did you, because there's obviously links between psychology and marketing, but I'm just trying to see the connection for you.
So it's interesting. So if I'm honest, I did a very, I always call it hardcore precision psychology, because why is that the case is because even like things that I use nowadays, like technology, like eye tracking, in precision psychology, to make it really experimental and consistent, you need a chin rest. So literally you do a 1.5 hour of experiment of a participant putting their head in a chin rest, and how comfortable can they be, right? So from that, I go, To be honest, I really like research, and it is really my honest supervisor, Jason, who really inspired me to be a researcher. Because I actually think I really enjoy the thinking process, the research formulation process, and the research hypothesis formulation process, and finally getting the answer. So, and really finding the true answer to that question. And it really fascinated me at that time. And in fact, I don't know if I've told you, Zac, I actually got an offer to do a clinical psychology master coursework interview. So getting in is very, very hard. Getting an interview for that coursework is extremely hard. I literally called the postgraduate coordinator and said, "Oh, sorry, I'm actually deciding to do a PhD and I'm not going to the interview." And literally the coordinator, because they know she knows me through honors. She's like, "Are you crazy? You know how hard it is to get in? Like we get normally 1,000 application and we shortlist about 80, and you're one of the 80." Like, "No, I'm not doing the interview." She was like, "You're crazy. Like most people would just drop PhD if they have a clinical psychology master." So anyway, basically, I don't want to be in clinical psychology. I don't want to be in, hardcore precision psychologist, but I was still very interested in psychophysiological response, biometrics, and this type of, objective measurement. So I started reading a few things, and I started to look at a field called social neuroscience, or social psychology and neuroscience. Basically using neuroscience techniques, so brain imaging, what I have said, eye tracking, facial expression, skin conductance, heart rate, to understand social psychology phenomenon. So, and lo and behold, my PhD supervisor, Eric Famin, was actually one of the pioneers to use it on implicit bias. So basically, implicit racial bias. So seminal research in those literature would be something like, they would do it on, U.S. citizen or U.S. policemen, and on self-reported measure or surveys, they would say, no, I'm not racist to a particular culture. But when you flash photos of certain ethnicity versus other ethnicity, what you could actually see from the physiological response is that you can really see that we call it the zygomatic and corrugator muscle, so the smiling muscle and the frowning muscle. So that really stipulate or in some sense correlates with positive and negative affects. So, or positive and negative attitudes, because basically it's your brain preparing your smiling and frowning muscle to prepare to smile or frown. And so when you flash those pictures on and you use this physiological response to look at positive and negative attitude or positive and negative affect, you actually see a racial or implicit racial bias. And so that got me interested, because I read one of Eric's paper, I read some social psychology paper, and I go, this is interesting. Because that then reminded me about Lie to Me. I go, now I know that, yes, Lie to Me is not true like any other drama about any other profession, right? A drama about medical doctor would probably have medical doctor going, that is not how we do surgery, or that is not how we treat someone in emergency, right? It's the same as me nowadays when I rewatch Lie to Me, I'm like, yeah, nah, that's BS. Like you cannot. You like that facial coding is not even valid. Like there's so many other explanations because of that facial expression. But this is electrical response. These are brain responses that have been sent to your muscles. So heart rate, skin conductance, you can't fake these. And you can actually pick them up with biometrics. So I got really interested, started speaking to Eric. Eric was a very generous supervisor, I must say. He goes, what? You want to do it in consumer? I don't do consumer research. I know nothing about consumer. I'm not interested in consumer. Like, I don't want to make money. I don't care how much people buy. And I said, no, I really want to learn. So can you be my supervisor to teach me social neuropsychology or social neuroscience? And I'll get a supervisor from business school, which is my marketing supervisor, Nicole Hartley. Still, both of them are still in University of Queensland. And a good shout out to Eric, who's got recently promoted to a professor. And so basically, Eric was the technical social neuropsychology guy. Nicole was my marketing and consumer research lady. And so they came together to supervise me. And I basically did a research on how emotion affects, certain emotion affects consumer decision-making process. And within it, there was a lot of components of these neuropsychological or psychophysiological measurements like eye tracking, skin inductance, heart rate, and all those kind of things. And that kind of propelled me in a career for the past 7 to 8 years to become a researcher that specializes in now I call consumer neuroscience or neuromarketing and these type of disciplines.
Yeah, it's a really cool way that you've kind of brought people from two different aspects of the university, both have very different but complementary skills, and you've managed to create a PhD out of it. And I guess a career out of it when you think about it. That's rather cool.
Hey guys, it's Zac Anesbury here with just a couple of quick reminders. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, then make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. There are plenty more interviews to come with some of the world's leading marketing academics and practitioners. You do not want to miss these. In the meantime, if you're looking for another way to connect, then follow me on Twitter at Zac Anesbury. That is ZACANESBURY for my take on the marketing issues of the day.
That was the Zac Anesbury Show.